Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Selling Learning. Welcome to another episode of the Learn How to Learn series, in which I'll show you several techniques to transform your learning and revision and studying on top of the normal techniques that we already know about, such as active recall, spaced repetition, all of that stuff. So I know this video was highly requested on Instagram, and for good reason, because I keep banging on about these mind maps. Like how about how they're supposed to save your time spent, tenfold, and how they give you the bigger picture, how they make everything connect, blah blah blah. So for that reason, I wanted to make a video about what is it you can do, from scratch, how you can make a mind map that's good enough for you to go over, memorize effectively, and build that bigger picture connection. So I've made a few rules up. It's called the 5 Ps. I've made it up myself. Um, and the first P that I want to talk about, just to get into it. So these are like golden rules that you can follow to make a framework for your mind map. The first one is placement. P for placement. Yeah. So what do I mean by that? So a lot of you guys know, or if you've ever used mind maps before, you guys are familiar with this sort of structure. The central topics here, for example, I mean, I just did hypoxia recently. So hypoxia, and then the mini topics here coming out. I mean, this looks like a typical mind map, guys, right? Yeah. And then you put all the mini points there, the extra information, any stuff here, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's not really what I think of a mind map when I'm making mind maps. I don't think of it like this. Like this used to be what I used to do, but um but you have to actually think about now, how do the topics sort of connect within your own mind, within your own thought process? Because mind maps are going to be specific to your thought process, to your way of like looking at a topic. Your mind map might be complete gibberish to someone else, but if it makes sense to you and how it logically fits in your brain, that's perfect. That's fine. So what do I mean by placement, and how does everything fit in? So if you look at this list that I made here before in the video about pre-learning, I've made like a list about all the key terms and the main ideas here. So essentially what I'm trying to do is now, and I've mentioned this before, is to find the links between the main ideas. So for example, I can find a link between O2 regimen and assessment of O2 regimen, because one's about the healthy side of oxygen, and one's about the how we can assess it. And then even further, if I want to link it even further, I can connect it to hypoxia, because hypoxia uses these words which overlap with the words under here as well. So the idea here is to make connections before you go into the details. That's how you should be making a mind map, because placement is going to mean putting the topics close to each other in a way that's specific to you and how you think, so that you bring in all the ideas together, rather than have the central idea and then have everything come out. It just becomes long. Like it just doesn't. It's not efficient enough for your brain to have that sort of connection. So always think about it in terms of placing the topics next to each other that have most relevance towards each other, and bring them close to each other so that you can clearly show the links between one concept and another idea and whatnot. So that's placement. So for example, hypoxia could be hypoxia, we know, is the main topics. We don't actually need to put hypoxia in the middle, but we can put, for example, O2 regimen here, hypoxia definition here, assessing it here, and you can see that these three are sort of like linked in together, because the hypoxia kind of links back to O2 regimen when it's healthy. It's like the complete opposites. Assessment is basically linked to the healthy regimen, because in order to assess something, you have to know at least what the healthy part is. So that's placement done. The next one I want to talk about is packaging. What do I mean by packaging? So packaging, what I mean is basically chunking or grouping. Chunking is a technique in which you basically take a long amount of topics or lists or whatever, and you try and group it as much as possible so that it reduces like how do I say, like storage or space in your brain. Think of your brain as like, has a certain amount of storage in its hard drive, I don't know, like 1 terabyte. And if you want to like make it more efficient and more compact, then instead of having like 5 things, try and like convert into 3. So what I did is I did this before last in the last video, in which there's 5 elements here: flow, respiratory system, blood, hemoglobin, cardio system, mitochondria. And instead of making like just listing all of this and putting it into an Anki card or whatever, what you can do is put it into 3 categories. So one about flow, one about systems, and have those 2 under it, and one about cellular. So instead of having 5 things, I've made that actually 3. So that actually makes my brain memorize it even more, because I've actually enabled it to chunk big topics into little sort of bite-sized pieces that I could sort of remember way more effectively than it was just a long list. Like, for example, when you have a number or a phone number, a lot of us remember phone numbers in little chunks like 020, 486, 789, something like that. You know what I mean? We don't actually learn a number like from 0 to 7 and just learn all those, particular numbers. So that's what packaging is called. So essentially about grouping ideas together. Yeah. Number 3, the next one I want to talk about as well is pictures. Pictures. Doodles and cartoons should be the main bulk of your mind map. So if you're new to mind maps, you can still go ahead and write text, but not too much, because then it turns into linear note taking. So linear note taking, what I mean is like just paragraphs and bullet points and that going from top to bottom. We kind of want it like a network, and try and just make doodles. You don't have to be, Vincent van Gogh. You can draw literally anything, cartoon, stick man, whatever like helps you memorize that concept. So for example, for mitochondria, I always draw like little hot dogs, because this is literally how a mitochondria looks like, the cristae and the membrane. Instead of writing mitochondria and blah blah blah, this, then you could probably even say like, I can even condense a whole fact into a picture, for example, like that. 80%, something about like radicals. So this could be a fact that would have been said in a full paragraph, condensed into a small image. And that to me makes sense. It doesn't have to make sense to someone else, because it's your mind map. You're the one that's learning in a unique way. And that's the beauty of mind maps. So placement, packaging, picture. Another one as well is priority. Priority between what? Well, priority between certain topics. Yeah, instead of just having normal arrows for everything. Yeah, let's say if I wanted to make it so clear to someone that one topic is very important to a main idea, I could just make this thicker, and that to me. So once I zoom out, sort of thing, I know that this concept is really really relevant compared to a topic that goes from here to here. So you can see like the overall direction of where the topic's moving, where it's going ahead. Yeah. You can even do different colored arrows on depending on, for example, if it's red, it could mean it's related to a clinical disease. If it's green, it's related to a cure. So try and even with the arrows, even with how big the concept is, how small like the heading is, these things make a big difference in for you to be able to see the bigger picture once you zoom out that mind map and then see the big picture. That's what mind maps are effective at, allowing you to see what's important, what's the bigger picture. And like I said with Bloom's taxonomy, prioritization and like critiquing, evaluating, that's the highest level, order learning that you could possibly do, compared to, recall and this. And this is an example of critiquing and evaluating which is more important than the other, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a certain thing. This is where it all comes at here. And the last P that I want to talk about is pathway. So a mistake that everyone does normally is they start with a topic like that, and then they do this. This is called the waterfall effect. So they make the side topics, then they go down, and you can see like the directions down there. Like that makes a mind map now linear, not non-linear. We want it to be non-linear because we want to show, rather than going from the main idea to the bottom, we kind of want to show, for example, concept A and concept sorry leads to concept B, which gives to concept C, along with concept D gives you concept E. So you can see the clear direction between going from one topic to another. For example, hypoxia leads to cyanosis. Cyanosis accompanied with another symptom can lead to, I don't know, another disease or another life-threatening condition. So you can see that there's a direction here, so that when you go out and zoom out from your mind map, you know where the topic starts, and essentially you can actually start from anywhere within the mind map, and you can still get to the same sort of like landing point or the same destination about where your learning wants to take you. So that's a big benefit with mind map. So those are the 5 P's. I also wanted to touch about packaging here, about the rule of four. The rule of four is basically states that if you have something coming off, like side topics or side information come out of a concept, you should like never exceed four, things coming out of it. So no more than four. Anything more than four, it's not really as efficient. You might want to consider taking it down a bit. Yeah. So if it's 5 or 6, try and group any of those, within those 5 and 6 topics to like two, like to group it into more so that you can reduce it to four. So four is like your max storage basically. And that's good because obviously you don't want to overwhelm your brain with so many things to remember about. So the less there is, the better the retention. And in terms of the apps and like what I recommend, what software I would recommend to making my maps, it's basically anything with an infinite canvas. An infinite canvas is basically so it's just like a blank page, literally nothing. And as soon as you draw and expand and you go to the limits of the page, it expands more and more and more. So it's basically an infinite, page essentially. And I know there's apps like Notability and Good Notes that's quite popular with students, but those are very limited to A4. And with mind maps, you do not want to limit yourself whatsoever because the whole point is to like branch out your knowledge and your exploration to find meaningful relationships. So the whole point of a mind map is to find things that group together that's specific to you, what you think is higher priority, what you think links to one and another. And every mind map within every student will always be different because everyone sort of thinks differently about a certain topic. Maybe some other student thinks that a certain subtopic links better with another topic than you might think. Yeah, but it's all about how it links to you personally, how you're gonna memorize it, because everyone at the end of the day, everyone's gonna have you know, their own exam, like your own sitting down in your own seat with your own piece of paper. You're gonna write what you've remembered over that exam season. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And sorry, so just to touch about what specific apps you could use that have infinite canvas. So OneNote is an example of an infinite canvas. It's not the best infinite canvas because it's a bit junky, cluttery kind of thing. I'd actually much prefer Concepts. Concepts is another good app. So Concepts, OneNote, those are two examples of infinite canvas apps. Things like Good Notes and Notability, they are good, but you know, quite limited in terms of the size it gives you. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions, concerns, or anything that didn't really make sense here whilst I was explaining everything, please do let me know in the comments or DM Saturday Learning on Instagram. And yeah, thank you very much, guys, and like, comment, and subscribe, all that nonsense. Thank you very much.